Amen.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another episode. So, today's guest is Miss Tammy Fashion, which is the coolest last name ever. And we've actually been working together for a few months now. She's been a part of the program, and her story it's been very awesome to work with Tammy over the past few months because I've really seen her become a different person through just learning about herself and not quitting on herself and nutrition and all the things. But today I really want her to just share kind of part of that story, her health and wellness journey, and even some other parts of the story, like some of the dark things that have happened in life and just carry with us forever. We're gonna dive into all that as much as we can. But before I talk too much, Tammy, why don't you start with just giving us as much or as little of your story as you'd like? Tell the people about yourself, and we'll dive into it.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. So happy to be here. And thank you, Kyle, for, allowing me to come onto your platform. I love what you're doing. Um, so my name's Tammy Jo Fashion. I actually am a designer. I don't want to say was because I don't feel like it's over, but I was a fashion designer for 12 years.
Nice.
And I was a sustainable fashion designer. So I took use basically discarded materials and turned them into beautiful dresses. And
That's really
um,
cool.
yeah, it was a wonderful experience. There's a story there. It was all about healing. I came to find out, like
Yeah.
using the discarded pieces of myself and like putting them back together into something beautiful was really what I was like trying to manifest through all of that. So, which I didn't even realize until like way later.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful. I had a store in Orlando, Florida. It was just it was great, and it's a huge part of me. But I also had a child about 3 years ago, and that was around the time of the pandemic as well. And I had moved, and everything was shut down, and so I shut down my business as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was honestly like it was a calling. God, talked to me about it. Um, he was like my business partner at the time. I know that might sound funny to some people, but it was just it was a very gentle, like you have to let this go for
Yeah.
now.
No, that's
And
awesome.
it was hard to hear, but I'm very much love to be in obedience because if you're out of that, there's trouble.
Yeah. It doesn't usually go well.
No, it doesn't go well. But so what I'm doing now is I am a single mother of my 3-year-old son. And now instead of doing fashion design, I'm doing home design, and renovation. So I kind of moved into the home space, which, really lights me up. Like my favorite thing is to just redo a bedroom or redo a space in someone's house.
That's so cool.
Especially spaces where they don't know what it is. It's usually their junk room, and they're like, that's kind of my favorite thing. It's like, oh, that's a junk room. No, that's like that's a bedroom for a guest, or that's an Airbnb, or it's like a studio. and
Wow.
and they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do with it. And I'm like, let's get it done.
Let's
So
do it. Let's go. Let's roll.
let's do it. I can flip over a room in a day or in 4 hours even. So it's just something that, it's been a passion of mine. And now I'm like trying to, again, start another business, with that being the core. So yeah, that's what I am and what I do.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a we don't have to harp on this, but that's a real skill. So I was in the construction space for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a real skill to be able to look at a room or a place or a building and see what it could be. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible. So we worked with some designers as well, and they would come up with these elaborate ideas, and my brain couldn't even like I couldn't do it. I'd be like, wow, okay, this is what it's gonna look like. So that's a real skill. I mean, that's awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for
Yeah,
saying that. I appreciate that because I sometimes think it's not, and I'm like, where am I? But that's like, Satan getting into your head and like doubting the
yeah,
way God made you.
yeah. Planting lies. That's usually
hmm
how it rolls.
hmm
So tell us about your health and wellness journey. So it's since you've been working with me, I'll give the audience a little teaser. One of the biggest things is you've learned that you need to eat more, and that is something that is relatively common amongst females, most prevalently, I would say. But this has been something that's like it seems as though, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems as though it's been a pretty radical change for you, where like you just feel overall better and healthier so far. I mean, this has been a new change over the past like month or so,
Yeah.
but I'd love for you to kind of walk people through that, like your past with health and wellness and what that's been like, and then leading up to now.
Well, ooh, that's okay. I'm going to try to simplify it. So yeah, lately, let's maybe go work backwards. So I I just started eating what I'm supposed to be eating. We're going to start there. I just started actually getting in, I never really knew what macros were. I mean, I knew what they were, but I didn't know how to like do that. And I wasn't really committed to like, oh, macros. But now I'm like understanding the, how it works and how important it is, and also just calories. And I grew up in like 80s, 90s, where it's like, oh, you need to have less calories and you need to have less carbs and, all these things. So like going back into that and like reopening MyFitnessPal after like maybe 10 years of not using it, it was just a little like daunting to me because there's just so much noise. There's so much noise, especially for women, of like what you should eat and how you should eat and when you should eat and how little you should eat. And I just kind of grew up, not necessarily grew up like as a child in that way, but like later on in life. And I was married to someone who wasn't very kind about those things. Um, he always would just like make these little like comments about my plate. Like if I had a lot of food on it, he'd be like, "Oh, well, you're eating with your eyes." And I'm like, "What? What does it even mean? I'm just hungry." like, like I wasn't allowed to like eat much. Which was weird. So there was always like that. Like there's tons of little jabs in there that like really got under my skin throughout the years, which I didn't think would really manifest, but they certainly did now that like I'm here in this part of my journey. And, I think for that's just like how I learned how to like eat less.
Mm.
And then actually I did divorce that guy. Actually, he divorced me, but that's a different, segue. But we I that was really tumultuous in my life. Like that was a real rock bottom for me.
Yeah.
We were married for 14 years and divorce wasn't part of my vocabulary. And it was devastating. Like I've never felt that depressed and completely just rock bottomed in my entire life. Like there was one point where I literally just thought of like driving off the road just to make the pain go away.
Yeah.
And with that came no appetite. So I had no appetite during that time. I couldn't eat a thing. I was literally just like eating apples and string cheese to like get through the day. There was a day where I just ate like turkey slices. Like it was just, and I was working out. I was working out like 7 days a week. I was doing like HIIT classes and I was waking up early in the morning, going for like long runs. Like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
You were in overdrive.
I was in overdrive. Like adrenaline has been something that, has been this like sneaky thing for me. Like, I've had to have it to survive a lot of really scary situations. And then with adrenaline, you just go, 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 but you don't eat. And there was another time in my life that happened to me too. Like after I had my son, I met someone who I thought was going to, be my husband after I got divorced. And it was wonderful for a minute. And then it was all lies. And I had to leave that relationship like a week after I had my son. So again, it was, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
like I
Oh
was
my gosh.
still bleeding. And I was like, please tell me that this is like, he basically just said, I didn't want to be married and I don't want to be a father, like 5 days after he was born. And I was like,
And just left.
I left
Yeah. And okay. Okay.
after that news.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh.
yeah. I was just like, I was living in Savannah at the time. I had moved there with him, and we were there for about a year and a half. And that's where, when I got pregnant and everything I thought was going to fall into place, we were going to get married, all the things. And then he just started talking to somebody else, like while I was 8, 9 months pregnant. And I knew it, you know, they knew. I was like, dang it. I was like, no, please don't do this. Don't do this.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was tough. Like a lot of the dreams that I had were just, starting to just shatter. And, but again, back to like adrenaline, it was very much like, okay, I'm not safe here. I know I'm not safe here. I'm not gonna, the first lesson I teach my son isn't going to be that we stay where people are mistreating us. So, by the grace of God, a friend had randomly called me from Orlando, which is where it was from. And she was like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like, this is what's happening. Like, I was in almost like a euphoric state too, because I just had my son. I'd been waiting my whole life to be a mom. So I was like, nothing's going to steal this joy from me. Nothing. Like, and I knew it was an attack of the enemy. I was like, he's trying to kill, steal, and destroy. Like, and no, no. And a good friend called and she's like, well, I have a room, and she's like, I don't like what I'm hearing. And if you need to leave, like, I have room for you back in Orlando where all my friends were. And so I was like, okay. And sure enough, I confronted him about him talking to somebody else, and he got angry and flipped out. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm right. All right. I'm going to go. And I was like, I'm going to go. And literally I packed everything that was near and dear to me. And that turns out to be my plants, my dog, and, my son. And I left. And I was like, if you're wise, you'll follow us. You'll come after, you'll change your ways or whatever. And he never did.
Now,
So,
now does he see your son now at all? That's
yeah,
heartbreaking. That's really heartbreaking.
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It is.
That is a sad reality of this world, is that sometimes people just cannot get out of their own way and just do the right thing. Like, it's unbelievable. Dang.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's like, I've practiced forgiveness so much in my life just because it does not serve me in any way to be angry about those things. And I feel like it's a spiritual gift where I can see why people make certain decisions and, like forgive them for that. Like, granted, there's consequences and it is very sad. Like, my child's fatherless and that's not fair for him. But at the end of the day, it's like, there was so many other things that happened in that guy's life to have him bail from that situation, from the most amazing gift that God can give. And so, that's sad in of itself. And like, I can have compassion for that part of the story. And also still have good boundaries for me and my son. But yeah, like,
yeah, it's balancing understanding that, but also still being like really hurt and upset, like, and figuring out how to toe that line. Because yeah, you're right. You want to be forgiving, and it's good to be forgiving, but it also still really hurts, and it sucks. And you think about that, and that's a process.
It was a process. But yeah, I mean, it was like I gave myself a whole year to grieve it. And I went to therapy like once a week. And, because it was almost like, okay, this happened again. Like, I was betrayed again because I was a similar situation with my ex-husband. And I was like, so the common denominator here is actually me. And I was like, what did I do? Like, how did I mess this up somehow? And, it definitely for me came down to, it basically came down to me betraying myself and me betraying my beliefs. And it just, those relationships weren't going to fit there if I was the one that was like, settling.
Yeah. When you say betray yourself, you mean by choosing that person to begin with, or what? What do you mean?
I think the biggest thing was, so, I am a Christian woman. I always have been. I love God. I've always been, I was brought up in the church. And I think along a lot of the times, like I was just always so desperate for love. I love love, right? I just love it. And I want to be in partnership. But I sacrificed some of my beliefs a lot of the time to be in these certain relationships, and specifically my son's father. He wasn't a believer, but I also thought, God can change people's hearts, and I don't want to, I want to be able to support his spiritual journey, not just like write him off for it. But like that was, again, like there's just those little deceiving characteristics that can happen. And, I obviously was like having sex out of marriage, which was a big no-no for me anyway. So, but at the time I was just like, well, I did everything right the first time I got married, everything. Like I waited until I was married. Everything right. Right. And it really failed me. I felt like doing things right didn't necessarily equal a great life. And the second time around, I kind of took matters into my own hands, and I was like, well, what does it matter?
Yeah.
And that was, I think, one of my greatest like sins, I think, that I did, against God, was completely just go behind what I knew to be true and take the steering wheel. And then, but how amazing God is, and I'm going to cry because it's so beautiful, is that I did something wrong, in accordance to like me and my relationship with God, but he gave me the greatest gift in return.
Yeah.
Like,
Isn't it funny that that's how God is? When we are complete, we're a complete mess, and we make mistakes and we do whatever, and God literally rewards us. Like he gives us something awesome. I mean,
doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't make any sense. And it's not
Yeah.
to say that there's not still consequences for things. Like, yeah, there's consequences, but even in that, like, God still gives us good things, and you're like, this is insane. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
And it's I believe, I believe it's because he wants to have just a better relationship with us, and he's trying to woo us. He's like, look, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm here and I love you. And I just think that's so cool. And you got to experience that firsthand.
Yeah. It's amazing. I look at it that way every time, and that's also what allowed me to extend such forgiveness. It's like, well, if God could forgive me for walking away from him and making my own choices that weren't great, and he forgave me for that. Not only forgave me, but like gave me something that I always wanted. Um, who am I to not forgive anyone
Yeah.
for walking away from me? Like, I'm just a human. Walk away from me all you want, but like, don't walk away from God.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's the story of the prodigal son. I mean, not to say you were the prodigal son, but that is the story where he goes and he just completely goes against God and lives a crazy life, but then he comes back and God just literally runs to him. It's just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you've been through a lot and you've experienced a lot, and it's pretty easy to understand why it would be so hard to like be in a place where you can like really take care of yourself. Like when your brain's in that survival mode and you're thinking about this and your adrenaline's coursing and you're trying to figure out where to live and go here and go there, and then you're like, well, I gotta count my macros too. It's like it just doesn't really like it
Yeah.
just
I
doesn't
was
really
like, no.
seem to fit into the puzzle there.
Right. Well, and then I have to feed my son, and I'm just like, okay, well, he's first. But I'm tired. Like at this point, so again, like back to the adrenaline, like the adrenaline got me through all of that, like finding the safe place to be, like okay, I'm doing this on my own. That's been confirmed. All right. How do I get help? Where is safe? Cause it's like when you get betrayed deeply by people, you start to just question your safety
Hmm.
and like who you can trust. And again, like having to make those decisions in the heat of the moment. Again, it was like you're running from a lion. Like I was just trying to survive. I was trying to take care of myself and now my son. And eating is the last thing that I was thinking about. So, and like long story short, it just caught up with me. It caught up with me. So like after running on that and like it being such a high cortisol situation in my body, I think once I did start to like settle down, then it became like a low cortisol situation, which is almost like, you're in the red at that point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast recently with Chris Williamson, and he was talking to some expert in the field of psychology, but they were saying that when you go through something, they're referring to like kids, when you go through a traumatizing situation and you do what you have to survive. It's very similar to you. Like you're in a situation where it's like you're doing what you have to do to survive. What happens is it's necessary during that time to be like that. Like for you to be in fight or flight mode, figuring out where to live, like not worrying about you eating, but getting sure you're like that was necessary, right? But what happens is when we get out of that situation and we're in a new situation, we can't switch off. So then we stay in that mode. And so it's he said you almost have to have the ability to look back in the past and thank yourself for it. Like, okay, I'm thankful for that time. I'm thankful that I was able to do that because I survived and I made it here. Thank you. Like really accept that and give yourself grace, but then move into the next phase where it's like, okay, now I have to do something else because I'm in a different season of life. And so I'm on my next phase of survival. And so for you, it was learning how to bring yourself down and actually like, okay, how do I do this thing? How do I take care of myself? How do I
yeah.
process it? Like what is, and so you went through that and that's hard. And so I guess just like that evolution, maybe talk a little bit about that because you're into that next phase now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Praise the Lord. I'm in the next phase. Yeah. So I was still doing, workouts, like HIIT workouts, boot camps, like right after, right when I was like cleared to be able to do that. Cause I was just, I was concerned about my body, I was like, well, I don't want to like let myself go. And, I'm still single, so I want to be like, attractive.
Yeah.
But I also just wanted to be healthy and strong enough to carry everything because I'm carrying everything. Um, so I was still continuing to do those classes like after I had Castor and then for like the last 2 years. And nothing was changing in my body. And I actually just kept on getting injured. Like my back would just keep hurting or like then my knees would like hurt. And like, it was just, I was like, nothing's happening. Nothing's working. And then of course I did talk to, a good friend of mine who's a nutritionist and she's a gut health specialist. And she was the one that first pointed out, like, she's like, well, okay. She's like, you don't look good. And then she was like, but what are you doing? Like, what are you eating? Because I started to just lose my sense of self. I was like, I have to look in the mirror to just even know that I'm alive. Because I'm like, I can't even feel myself. And she was like, well, what are you eating? And I was like, what?
What do you mean eating?
I was like, what? And yeah, I was like, well, if I'm being honest, I was like, I had some of the hot dog that I made for Castor and the macaroni and cheese, and then maybe I had some ice cream. And she was like, okay.
Yeah.
She's like, that's not enough. And also, that's not good food either. And she's like, you need to be having like, all the things, like, whatever.
Healthy
And yeah. And she's like, you also like, are you taking vitamins? And I was like, oh, no, I'm taking a probiotic, but like, I was like, I don't even want to drink water. I don't want to do anything. I was like, I want to take care of my son and like go lie in bed and put the covers over my head. Like it was, it's a little depressive state.
Yeah.
And, she was like, okay. So she got me like lined up with all these like supplements to take, but she was very adamant. She's like, the supplements aren't going to do anything unless you like, you know, are still eating food. And that was really like the first time I heard it, where she was like, I think you're under eating. And I was like, well, that's just new to me. I don't really know what under eating. I don't like, I've looked my best and I've like survived a lot by not eating anything. So like, I was like, I think I'm just one of those people that only needs 600 calories a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, in a time warp in myself. Like I'm some like unicorn.
That's
It
like
turns out I'm
when
not.
that's like when people say, "I think I'm one of those people that only needs 4 hours of sleep." And you're like,
No,
"No, you're just
no.
surviving on adrenaline. You need more
Mm-hmm.
sleep."
Yeah. So anyway, it still took me some time. Like it almost took me a whole year to even really let that sink in.
Mm.
And then it wasn't until like I started working with you and we were doing the work and I was just like, nothing's happening. I'm like, nothing's happening. And then I got sick, which turned out to be like also a result of burnout. And I was like, it's just bad, man. I'm like, it's just bad. I just want to work out and like gain the muscle and lose the fat. Like, can we just like get this on the road? And you were like, I think you need to calm down. Like,
Yeah.
take a break, go for some walks, and just eat. And I was like, I don't want to. I'm like, I don't want to. And then you linked me up with your nutritionist, and we had a heart to heart, and she was just very serious. She's like, you're not going to see that scale move. You're not going to lose any weight until you start like telling your body and showing your body that you are feeding it.
Yeah.
And so I was able to explain to her, a little bit about like my past experiences and, just being in fight or flight and like running off adrenaline. I was drastically under eating. And so she was basically telling me, what is it? Your basal metabolic rate, is like 1,500 calories, for where I'm at. And she was like, you're not even eating enough to survive in a coma. And just by her saying that, like really snapped with me. I was like, well, I've never heard that before. I didn't know I was supposed to eat over that many calories just to like survive. And she's like, and then you're doing workouts on top of that. And then you're stressed. And she's like, your body is just, it's not responding because it's terrified that you're going to stop eating again, because that's what you do. And it was like, and I knew that. I was like, I knew my body was stuck. And I knew my body was just like holding on so tightly to whatever it is I have because, it doesn't know when the next shoe is going to drop. It's thinking, out of like just the sequence of stuff that's happened in the last like 7 years of my life. So, it was just a matter of just putting those two puzzle pieces together and believing that it was safe enough now for me to relax and for me to eat more, and that my body was actually going to respond more to me eating than me not eating. Because I'm no longer in fight or flight, like praise, and I'm no longer like running on adrenaline. I'm actually in a very like peaceful spot. I'm well taken care of. There is food. Now I have care for my son. And there's work and there's just like, there's things that are happening and it's like, we're safe, like we're fine.
Yeah.
And so now it was like it was just this big turning point for me and it's like, it's beautiful, right? Because I was running on all of this adrenaline for so long. And I feel like I was really just trying to make sure that I was taking care of my son. And now I'm at the point where like my son is taken care of and I have help and it's time to take care of myself in order to step into this next chapter of my life. So yeah, now I'm eating more. I'm understanding like the macros, the protein and the carbs and the fat. I get what that like really means and like how it comes together in the pie of the day. Um, so, and I find, what's that?
Well, I want to. I believe I know the answer to this, but I want to ask just for the sake of the audience.
Mm-hmm.
What was your biggest hesitancy about eating more? Was it the just the traditional, if I eat more, I'm gonna gain weight and not look the way I want to look? Was it that belief, or what else was it?
Um, I think it was two things. Like, I think one, I just didn't have an appetite.
Hmm.
Still didn't have an appetite. It was like, my body was just used to that, or I was used to that. Um, and, and two, it was like, when I do want to eat, I would just go for the things that were like more comforting for me. Cause it's like, yay, I'm hungry. Let's eat something fun.
Yeah.
And, um, and so I think it was just a matter of just allowing the process to be actually a little bit more simplified. I was complicating it way too much. And it was like just eating more meals during the day versus like I would eat one thing in the day sometimes and it would be like a big thing.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, well, that's good. I'm not hungry now. Like I'm fine. But I think, yeah, when it comes to also the MyFitnessPal app, which is what I'm using, um, at the top of the bar, like you have your stats, like what you're supposed to reach for the day. And when you go over your macros, it puts a negative sign.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking like that was a bad thing.
Yeah.
And, Meredith, our nutritionist, she was like, no, that's a good thing. She's like, it should be a plus sign. She's like, because that's like she's like, the numbers I gave you are basically a baseline. That's a baseline. You have to hit those in order to just function. Just function, like just stay alive and like have energy. You need to hit those numbers. And I was thinking of the opposite. I was like, oh, I need to come in under those numbers. Like, I don't want to like go over. And she's like, no, I actually want you to go over. So like that was a big aha moment for me. And I found like and honestly, it was like maybe just a week ago where I was like hitting those numbers and started to feel like a change almost instantly. Yeah. And also a change like hormonally. Like I wasn't, I wasn't like getting my period. And for me, that was like a big sign of like something's really wrong.
Yeah, that's a very big deal.
Yeah, it was like, so I'm usually pretty regular, but when I'm super stressed, like it just fluctuates a little bit as it does for most women. But I was like, oh, I've been trying so hard. And I was like, that was a big, it was a big like shock for me. I was like, gosh, something's wrong. Like I'm still stressed, or I'm still like, something's not working. And, so on top of like just eating properly again, cause my body was just scared.
Mm-hmm.
Because of memory, your body like holds the memory.
Oh, yeah.
And so my body was scared. And it's still like, I feel like my body and my digestive system is now just like, oh, we can trust you again. It's like an abused dog.
Yeah, that's a great
that
way to put
was
it. Yeah.
just rescued. And you're like trying to eat again and trying to like feel safe again. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to come out from underneath the table. I don't want to come out from underneath the table. Like, I'm not sure that not something bad's not going to happen out there. And for me, it was just like, just starting to slowly come back out, like out from under the table and like eat a little more and like, start habit stacking. Like I couldn't do it all at once. And I thought that I could. It's like, I know what to do. I know what to do to be healthy. I know the routines I have to have. But with everything that has gone on and my body keeping the score of all of that, it was like, yeah, it was like an abused little animal that was just like too scared to come back out into those places. But now I've like started to habit stack and like add a little bit more protein to my morning routine, like whether it's just in my coffee or just like have some protein within the first hour, adding electrolytes in my water, taking my vitamins, like not all the ones because I can't do all of them. There's like probably 100 I need to have a day. And I'm like like, yeah, it's just too much. It's too much all at the same time. So it's like now I'm like starting to slowly add in all these things that are going to fuel my workouts. So then, and I also like changed my mind as to like the scale and like losing weight. It's like, I just need to get over that. What I want to feel is healthy and happy and energized and like, have this lightness about me and, not necessarily like the lightness of the scale. Like, who cares about that?
Yeah. Well, that's a tough one because it's a quantifiable metric, right? Like you're looking at it and like that's the outcome you want is if you want the scale to go down, or for guys, I want the scale to go up, or whatever the goal is. But oftentimes, just focusing on that doesn't give you the result you want.
Right.
It's almost like when you're meditating and
Mm-hmm.
you're just thinking about meditating. Well, when like if you're thinking about meditating, then you're not actually meditating. The point of meditating is not think about anything, and so it's a very like counterintuitive
Yeah.
thing, right? And so oftentimes people will reach their results when they focus on, like you said, I want to feel good. I want to fuel my performance. I want a habit stack. Forget the scale, and you just start to run through that process, and
Yeah.
eventually you step on the scale one day, and you're like, holy smokes, this is great. Like this is
Yeah.
awesome. This is exactly what I wanted. It's a very paradoxical way to reach a goal because you just want to focus on the goal, the thing, and oftentimes that's not how it works.
Mm-hmm. I think I was like trying to bypass, I was trying to do a fitness bypass, it's like, okay, let's just get this done. Let's like lose 40 pounds in 4 months. Like I can do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, sure, I could probably do that if I was just drinking iced coffee and running on adrenaline and running away again, from something. Yeah, maybe I would. But like, that's not where we're at now.
Yeah.
So
And it's not sustainable. Like it's not
no,
it
I
I
don't want to
know.
do that anymore.
Yeah. And I know it's been super hard for you to run through this process. Like I don't want to act like I've gone through that, but like you've gone through something really really challenging. Even but it's honestly so good that you have because you've learned. It's the parable like feed a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach a man a fish, he eats for a lifetime, right? And so you've kind of gone through this process where you've had to like
Right.
relearn all of this, but it's stuff that you can carry with you forever. And so now it can become a lifelong thing where you have a better understanding rather than just like get a quick result and then what? You're just gonna go on adrenaline forever? Like you can't do it. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And people do that all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think that was like the biggest step too of just going on this journey with you too was like I know I needed to make a change. I was like I know I'm not happy. But I think what was really cool too is also like how you work and what you provide for your clients, right? Like you understand that there's root causes and you are doing your best to like get to those points. Like you really hear and listen to like what we're saying. And if you feel like you can't or you don't have the tools or the answers, like you provide those through other means. So like I really appreciate that. And I'm so, glad that I found you because honestly, I think the biggest thing for me too was that I knew that I needed to get better. And I knew that I wanted to continue on my health and fitness journey. I do love fitness. But I knew that I needed real support,
Mm.
like hands on support. I needed somebody that could like push me. I think I told you in our very first call, I was like, no, I need you to text me and be like, did you work out today? Like get your butt off the couch and go. And it's like, for me, that's what I needed, and also, I don't have that support right now. I don't have that support from like my family or a husband or anything like that. So having that support from you was like really valuable to me,
Yeah.
having someone that could just be like, no, I see you, like, and you've got this. But it wasn't always you've got this. It was also just like, you need to rest, girl.
Well, that's what I was gonna say too. I think sometimes people have this picture in their mind that like a coach is gonna say, "Hey, go harder, go this, go that," and some do. But that was one of the biggest lessons I learned, very similar to you when I was training, was oftentimes what we need is rest. And I had because I had a goal of being a competitive CrossFit athlete, and I was scrolling through Instagram and seeing other competitors just like crushing workouts, and I'm like, that's what I got to do. I got to do more. And my coach at the time spoke into me, and he's like, no, take a week off. Your fitness is not going to melt away in a week. Go take a week off.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very a paradigm shift for me. And so I know when I'm working with someone like you, and you're sharing the things that you were sharing, you're like, I feel tired, I feel stressed, I feel whatever. It's like, I think you need, like, just take some time off. And that can honestly be the push that you need. And so I'm glad I was able to provide that for you. I really am. And it seems like it's been helpful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Resting and eating. It's like,
Yeah.
who knew? Who knew getting some fuel
Well,
in there?
yeah. And, it was just so supportive, right? Because that's not what I've been told before, right?
Yeah.
It was just more like, oh no, try harder, go harder, like eat less, da da da. And, this time around, it was just more support. It was softer, It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're soft. You're soft when you're soft, but you're hard when you're hard. You're tough when you're tough.
um, I want to come back to this. You mentioned something I think is very poignant for people to hear out there. Let me exit out of this. Sorry. You mentioned your body being like a stray dog, right? Like that relationship, like it was like an abused animal. I think that's a very important thing to talk about because it alludes to the relationship we have with ourselves, right? And you kind of put some personification there, which I really like. But maybe share with the audience what that felt like, and maybe how you've healed that. I mean, we've already been talking about it, like you're eating more, you're resting more, but maybe some of the psychological and maybe the dialogue you have with yourself, because there's a lot there. People, myself included, we're very hard on ourselves and we're very easy on other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I talk to myself the way that I spoke to you sometimes when we needed encouragement, I'd be a different human. But I'm ruthless with myself
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and oftentimes that's just how it is. So I don't know. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Well, I think that's why we need other people, because, even in like the wounded dog space, like the wounded dog isn't going to take care of themselves.
Mm,
You need other people to come in and help you and speak softly to you and sometimes like spoon feed you. Sometimes you just need to be taken care of. So I think like that was just one of the things that I allowed,
mm,
you know, for myself was, because even like, the wounded animal is still going to try to run away, but there's, they still have to, you have to sometimes just surrender to, to where it is that you're at. Like, and I think for me, it was just like, I just wanted like this radical acceptance of like myself and
mm,
where I'm at. Like, so I think for me, I just did a lot of like, I do like to meditate and I do sometimes like hypnosis style meditation where I go like way deep and get to like the root cause, childhood stuff, other traumas and all the things.
yeah.
Um, so I would do a lot of that and all of it is just like, you know, just trusting not only in yourself, because that's just such a concept that comes later,
Mm,
but trusting in other people or in the people that like God has put in your life or that he sends your way. Like when you're in alignment with God or you're just surrendering your life over to him, like people come. People just show up.
yeah.
It's the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
And everyone is like a messenger.
Mm,
And it's really beautiful. And I think for me, it was just like surrendering to that and surrendering to the fact that like, okay, I can't do this on my own. Done everything on my own. I got out of bad situations on my own. I'm taking care of my kid on my own. I'm like, going back to school even, like I'm doing everything on my own. And it was like, I can't do one more thing on my own. I just
yeah.
can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was realizing that.
And I imagine, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I imagine that it was probably hard to surrender to accepting help from other people in some respect because you'd been betrayed by some people who got close to you. And so you're like, well, there maybe a little bit there. I don't know. You can speak to that, but that's at least the story I'm telling myself is maybe there was a little bit of trauma there. Where you're like, can I trust? Can I actually let go? I don't know if that resonates.
Oh no, it does. I think also again, that was like one of the reasons that I did decide to work with you, is because I was still kind of in that place of like, I don't trust anybody and I can do everything on myself by myself. And then, you popped up, and not only are you, you're doing what I wanted to be doing, you're healthy, you're running a business, you're a single dad, and also like you're a man of faith. And like those were the things that were like, I feel like I can trust this person. And like that's a big deal, Kyle. But also I wanted to test the theory. I wanted to test like, and this was safe enough for me to like reach out to you and like trust you from everything that you've said and like our conversations. I was like, I think I can trust this guy. And so like that was a big healing part for even me and like for my heart. Cause like even just, working with you, a male, was me opening my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
And trusting you with
Yeah.
like my vulnerable state that I'm in.
That takes a lot, and it speaks to your character. I mean, it speaks to your willingness to not keep running and just be like, you know what, we got to figure something out. And not everyone does that. Some people never do that.
Yeah.
And that's what's insane. But you did it. And now you're on the other side of it. And it's, I want to be clear to the audience. It's not like, oh, we got it all figured out. Like but you're moving in that direction. Like you figured some things out and you're still walking through the process. And that's something I try to make clear too about coaching. It's like, I'm a catalyst for your growth. I can be, right? But you have to be willing to do the work.
Yeah.
And not everyone is. And I try to make that clear on the calls I have with people. It's like, hey, doesn't matter how good the program is, the nutrition is, how available I am, doesn't matter. If you're not willing to put the work in, it's not going to work.
Right.
And so I want to make sure the audience knows, like, I want to give you credit. Like you've put the work in,
thanks.
and you're still putting the work in. And that's huge, right? That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So what's next for you? I mean, we're still working together. So we still got a few months of crushing this thing, but we're forward thinking. What's next for you?
Oof. Well, I am at a farm in Constantine, Michigan, which is, look that up. I dare you.
Yeah. What in the world?
So, yeah, this is a really good friend of mine. This is his mother's property, and she just inherited it too. So it's been in their family estate, and it hasn't really been updated since maybe the 70s, if that. So they got wind of like what I was doing and the other projects that I've helped friends and family with, like with renovation and all the things. And so she asked if I could help her with this really big project here. So I'm renovating a big garage barn event space.
Cool.
And also like the inside a little bit, like this back here will be something. The inside of her little farmhouse too. So big farmhouse. So yeah, I'm here until at least like April, March, and then, wherever God wants me to go. I think like that is one of the beautiful gifts about my situation is just, there's a lot of things and I went down this rabbit hole last year, a lot of these things I don't have this, I don't have that. But a really good friend of mine like had a conversation with me once, and she was like, I think you just need to change your perspective. And she's like, you have freedom. She's like, you have a lot of freedom. She's like, you can go anywhere you want to go. You can move anywhere you want to move to. You can raise your son any way you choose. It's all up to you. And she's like, that's hard, but there's also a lot of freedom there. You don't have to check in with anyone to, like decide what to do with him or for him. Again, which can be hard, but it was very freeing. She was just like, I think you need to exercise your freedom. And so with that just came traveling. So I took my son to Europe last year, and yeah, it was just amazing. So maybe some travel this summer. But yeah, we have total freedom, and I'm waiting for the next steps from God. Right now, he's just he's put me here
Mm.
and he's put me here with a job to do. And so I'm going to do it and do it well and then wait for the next assignment.
No, that's so awesome. Yeah, it is a weird, so I don't necessarily like being a single dad. I've got some regrets of my relationship and the whole thing, but I'll be very honest, similar to you, I would not have been able to really dive into this whole podcasting and social media and growing a business the way I have if we weren't split in time. Because as you know, it's really tough when you have a little
Yeah.
one around and you're trying to do things. And as much as I don't like it, it's affording a possibility, and I have to look at it that way. So it's a tough balance. You're thankful for it, right? You're
Yeah.
thankful for the freedom, but you're also like, this is really hard, and I don't necessarily like it, but I'm gonna try and your perspective. I mean, perspective is a huge word,
Yeah.
and that's huge. You're in a really good spot.
Thank you. You too. I mean, honestly, Kyle, like there's a lot of other things you could be doing with your split time, but you choose to serve others and serve the Lord and only up from there,
Right. That's
you
right.
know?
All right. Well, tell people, where can they find you for your business if they're interested in some designing and some work like that. Where can they find you?
Okay. Well, I'm still in, the beta stages mostly and, bringing it up, but you can reach me. The best place is Instagram and it's just Tammy Jo Fashion, Joe with no E. Um, And yeah, I mean, if you're interested, I am doing like virtual design work. So if there's a room that you have that you need to flip, I can still help you with that even from afar.
Cool.
But I do love to travel too. So yeah,
Heck yeah.
we can
Awesome.
make it work.
Cool. I'll put
Yeah.
a link in the description so when people watch this on YouTube or Spotify, they can find you on Instagram and shoot you a message.
Yeah.
Running a business is hard. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's ups and downs, and there's highs and there's lows, and the biggest thing is being consistent, and that's what you're doing. You're being consistent. You're
Yeah.
not quitting on it. And if you don't quit, you can't lose. Like it's that simple. It's just a game of outlasting
Right.
people, and you're doing it.
Right.
So that's
Right.
awesome.
Thank you. Also, if anybody, if anyone listens to this podcast and is going through any similar situations or, breakups or betrayals or single motherhood, feel free. Please reach out. Like I think that's one of the biggest things that like I even ask God for. It's like send me the people that my story can do some good for. Because otherwise then what was the point?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sharing it with people. That's so awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
for you out there listening, seriously, hit up Tammy. She is amazing to have a conversation with, and she'll help you and be encouraging. I mean, it's really great. So don't hesitate. This was a really great podcast. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
keep hitting me up as you need help with training, and I'll keep making sure I'm holding you accountable, and we'll keep this thing rolling.
Yeah. Excited.
Cool. All right, you guys. Thank you for watching and listening. This was another episode of the Strain Forward podcast, and as always, keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward.
All right. Hold on. Let me see if it stops recording.